Welcome, my name is Kevin Brandon, and in this video what I want to do is show you 6 Adobe XD plugins that I think every designer should have installed. I have an Adobe XD document open on my screen currently, and I'm going to open up the plugins panel. If you don't know where that is, at the bottom left hand corner of Adobe XD there's a brick icon. Click the icon to open up the plugins panel. Currently I have 5 plugins installed and I want to install a 6th. So I install the plugins by clicking on the plus sign in the top right hand corner of my plugins panel, and it opens my Do More with XD window, allowing me to discover, browse, and manage my plugins. Now I know the plugin that I want to install, so I'm going to click Browse. I'm going to enter the search brand, and brand fetch comes up first. So I want to install brand fetch by simply clicking on the word install. The installs are quick and easy with Adobe XD. Closing this window, I can now see that brand fetch is listed along with my other plugins. What does brand fetch do? If I click on brand fetch, it gives me some options. It tells me here that I can search and add logos, fill selections with images, and click on fonts and colors to save into my library. Great. I'm going to do a search for Twitter. And as I search for Twitter, it gives me a number of different options. I want the twitter.com. By clicking on that, I can claim brand. I've got access to an SVG file, a PNG file. Again, I can see the colors that are available for Twitter, see the fonts that are used, as well as see any potential images. I'm going to go back to the logo. And in the logo, I definitely want this SVG file, so I can simply drag this SVG file onto my artboard. By dragging it onto my artboard, I can see this SVG file and I can scale this image down and place it at the bottom here where I want to have my social media icons displayed. Because it's an SVG file, I can actually go and change the colors. Just be sure that when you're using colors that you're following the brand guidelines. Going back to the plugins, I'm going to go to the main plugins by clicking this back arrow, and I can see all the list of my plugins again. Icons for Design is another definite plugin you should have as a designer. This simply allows you to add icons that you want by doing a quick search. So if I want to have a search for arrow, find me arrows. And again, it lists me all kinds of arrows from the awesome font, from feather icons, and on the way down. Open, Metro, and even iOS if it's available. So I'm going to choose an arrow, and maybe I'm going to choose this arrow from Iconic. And automatically it drops in the top left-hand corner of my artboard. And I can scale this up, I can move this around, scale it down again, reposition this wherever I'd like within my document. Again, I can change the color to be whatever I would like it to be to match my designs. Icons for Design, a fantastic plugin. All those plugins can be found by installing by clicking on the plus button. Image Optimizer, I'm going to skip that for a second and go down to StockSolo. So StockSolo will allow me to find images from open source stock photography websites. By clicking on a shape inside of Adobe XD, clicking on the StockSolo panel, it gives me some options here. So I can do a search for whatever I'd like. I'm going to do a search again for cheese and see what happens. It's now pulling images from stock photography websites. So Unsplash, 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 apparently a lot from Unsplash today. Pexels, oh delicious, look at that. I'm going to choose this image, click place, and it's automatically going to position this image inside of my frame that I have selected here. I can double click the frame to reposition the image, to scale the image, or change the image at will. If I want to choose a different image, I can simply go back and scroll down with the item selected and choose any other image I'd like, and it'll replace it. Great, so StockSolo, fantastic. To complement that, by selecting the image, I have Image Optimizer. Image Optimizer doesn't give me a lot of options, it simply optimizes the images for me. So for instance, when I'm saving my files, I notice a difference between my file size if I've selected the images and choose Image Optimizer, selecting the only option here, optimized, okay. And my file sizes are actually smaller. UI Faces is another plugin that is a definite must if you're using XD for UI projects. So I'm going to simply create an ellipse here, use my repeat grid to create multiple, scale them out, add a little bit of spacing in between, and I'm going to add user faces inside here. UI Faces does not work inside a repeat grid, so I have to ungroup my repeat grid, bring it back to the blue bounding box, click on UI Faces. When I click on UI Faces, I have the choice of Unsplash, Pexels, and a number of different options I have to pull images from the web. I also have the ability to add filters, so I can choose age range, gender, emotion, happiness, hair color, and I can simply say apply randomly. So what it's going to do is go out to those open source websites, pull the images that I'd like inside here, and automatically fill these shapes with images from users. So I think that's a fantastic plugin. Really speeds up my time, so I don't have to go to different websites and search for those faces. I can simply add users in there. The other thing I want to talk about is Stark, and Stark is definitely a plugin you should have, and this deals with accessibility. So for instance, in the bottom here, I have my Twitter icon, and I've got this gray background, and I want to know if this matches accessibility standards. So I'm going to do check contrast. And by checking the contrast, it's going to warn me whether my selected elements comply with the AA or AAA accessibility standards. So I know that it does not, which means that I need to change this. So I'm going to click Done, select my background here, and let's increase the darkness so I can have more contrast between the two. Select both of the items again, go back to my rapid contrast checker, and I can see automatically that this has now given me my contrast ratios as well as the green check mark saying that this is a good contrast, no issues with accessibility here. If I want, I can go back and select text and a background color, and I can simply do the check contrast again, and it'll tell me whether I've got a good contrast. So I'll get my ratio 21 to 1, and I've got all the check marks so that I know that this is good with accessibility. And I can save my document. So those are quick 6 plugins that I would highly recommend for any designer using Adobe XD that will speed up your productivity as well as give you insight into accessibility. I hope that helps. All the best with Adobe XD.